the murderer. They found her in a ditch between the thick gravel of the farm road and the field that runs to the edge of the earth in Illinois, her face turned back to her shoulder like a bird nestling for the night, and the stain at her breast was the shadow of a cloud passing. The red flannel nightgown she was so fond of, soiled and bunched around her knees. The jewelry box with the bent ballerina lay open and empty by her hand. They came for him in town. He was paused at a parking meter, hand-pulling change from a pocket, sleepy eyes gazing beyond the reflective glass of the old storefronts to the diner. He had thought of pie and coffee, sweetness and steam rising against the fading sun. They knew who he was. It was a small town. He ran a cemetery and owned a 10-acre plot of trees east of town where the rabbits ran before the opening of hunting season. He sat over eggs and bacon every morning at the diner with one man's uncle, another's father. It seemed she didn't cook. He was asked to come along. No rites were read, no explanations given, and as he followed without responding, he was taken to the station in fragile silence, with careful movements so solicitous. He could feel the man behind the bare desk bend in to watch his face when he was finally told about his wife. He could only nod. There was no surprise, no denial, no grief or guilt, just the snake hiss of a hand held close to the chest one last time before being spread on the table to win or lose, her hand limp in the dirt, and he was still holding it. The story was they had a fight after dinner, later after dark, about money. She took a suitcase and her jewelry and drove off to go to her daughter's house. She had done it before. Hadn't all of them, the men in the room, been threatened the same? Weren't they all middle-aged with children gone? The last part he left out. They weren't like him. Their love was tepid water after a rain, puddles at the curb. So they let him go with shaking heads. They were hoping for straight talk, one man to another, or some remorse to point the way. They had a bullet with no gun, and no one saw a thing. And he was a wooden war horse, a tribute filled with murderous intent, unreadable. I remember his face, thin with cheeks too thick that would sag in old age, full lips and good teeth and black brows and curly hair, black to match, which he greased with the fashion of the time, barely gray at 60. He never smiled unless he was on the verge of making you the fool, and he never laughed at all. He could be friendly and invite you along to hunt rabbits if he thought he could get your money. Otherwise, he seldom spoke. He was given to sunglasses, even inside on a dark day, and liked to park his car so he could watch it from the closest window. He could be affectionate with a pat or a poke, but mostly didn't want to be bothered. He played catch with me once, and once in a winter's blizzard drove me to deliver newspapers, all the while asking me if I really wanted to have the route. He had flunked out of college, but say he had quit to enlist. He had been rejected and passed over, but said he was Army intelligence. He was a thief and an embezzler, the driller of crooked wells, a wife-beater, the boogeyman in the night, and all of the irrational and maddening anger that could burst out to harm you for no reason. He was a little boy pouting when he didn't get his way. He was the NSA, the CIA. He was a spy hushed up that could make you or break you, but he could never tell that part of it. It was secret, you see. And he had a windshield with a bullet hole to prove it, and they were watching all the time. They were probably the ones that had left her like a broken crow in the corn. They knew he loved her even though she was to blame for their oldest dying in a fall from the oak tree, loved her even though she had cuckolded him and his children that weren't his, loved her even though she tried to poison his meals. She just couldn't cook. She was something, that one, moved in bed like a whore. You could feel like crying just to look at her. He would have never left her arranged like that, at the edge of the world. He knew what claws came up from behind the slightest rise of dirt. He knew about the holes that appear when your back is turned, how your footprints will open up to hell below by crossing a field plowed under. That was his job, the opening and closing of graves and the placement of markers. Perpetual care. He knew all the secrets. Could hear the trap doors open below the closing had to lay another mound of dirt after the first sank, always. Few went up. They left at the service. They say you can photograph them leaving. The coffins go down, empty and not, or not, of the soul. Sometimes they talk just before the sound of sliding away, and the voice trails off like a train leaving. It's the sound of someone talking in their sleep, quiet-like, almost a whisper, with words that feel as though they make sense even when they don't. It's the same way they chatter just beyond the door of the diner, just out of earshot. They looked askance when he wouldn't follow his son's casket to the cemetery, and again when his own mother died and left both graves neglected. How could he want to know if either one was going to hell? And what could he tell anyone? There had always been one, she had been one, that had wanted the real reason. So he would smile shyly and explain it was a series of signals agreed upon years before to let his secret friends know that he was still all right and still in the game. So this was the way it had always been, lying to hide the truth, until it was hard to tell one from the other. He could still recall the year the number of pies in the case in the diner remained at 9 until someone had died. And then in the horror of opening and closing those 9 graves that year, the numbers of his Social Security card faded as surely as if they were trying to erase him. He still remembered killing her. He shot her. But the pulling of the trigger wasn't lingering enough to express it all. Now he wished he had had a knife, to see the terror in her eyes, to feel the hate and love, and have his tears mixed with hers, and have his sweat mixed with her moist blood, to stab and stab and stab, so she could melt slowly into death with that horrible drowsiness that comes in a too warm bath. It might be better to believe that version, in case of a slip, a confession. Then they would just think him crazy, because she didn't die that way. Didn't he know better than anyone how things just had to come out, whether you wanted them to or not? Thank you. There's more at The Murderer